This is the perfect RIA, in case you didn't know. Bringing you all the strategies to help your business grow. Are you happy? Are you satisfied? Are you hanging on the edge of your seat? Sit back and listen in while you feel the beat, yeah! Another myth bites the dust.
Hello, TPR Nation. This is Amber Kim from The Perfect RIA. Thank you for joining me on today's Follow-Up Friday, where I'll be covering the highlights and action items from this week's episodes. On Monday, Matt and Micah kicked off the show by talking about teams and how although technology has enabled teams to grow far and wide, you still need to look at your communication policy and make sure it's solid and fits your needs, and that your team is going through training. They said when you're working in a virtual environment, you don't have that chit-chat that you would normally have in a regular office. So you need to consider, how are you making up for that? For Matt and Micah's team, and many times for our own team here at The Perfect RIA, they'll chat about 5 minutes before a meeting officially starts. But if you do implement this, make sure that the chatting is started before the actual meeting. You still want that meeting to start on time. When you have a virtual team, there's also some things that you need to watch a little closer. The guys said that when you're in person, you're able to keep that pulse on things and see what's going on right away. So you still need to find a way to have that pulse with your virtual team as well. Matt said it's easy for us to tell ourselves stories about our teams. You assume everything is getting done and that if they need training, they're going to ask for it. Or if something is broken, they're going to say something. But he said, you get what you inspect, not what you expect. So don't kid yourself that everything is fine. This led to the overall topic of the episode, which focused on team training. They said you can assume that your team is doing well, so therefore they don't need any training, or that they don't need to sharpen their skills in something. Micah's team can do things repetitively and follow a process, but one thing that tends to get missed is how to make things more effective. So team training allows them to reevaluate certain things and look at them through a different lens. Matt said team training is one of the best ways to keep a team that's striving for excellence, not just the status quo, because you're focused on taking things to the next level. So why is team training a must? For Matt, it forces him to get involved in the team and look at what they're doing, find out what they're working on, where they're struggling, and where they're having success. And it creates an opportunity to spend time with the team working on a common goal together. He said you can also flesh out other hidden issues that maybe you didn't see, and you can address questions and head trash when those concerns come up. The guys hear a lot of excuses about why advisors can't do team training, such as they don't have enough time, or that they already do more than anyone else, so why would they need training? But you need to create an environment where your team wants training. Matt shared an idea from the book Drive by Daniel Pink that with your team, it boils down to autonomy, mastery, and purpose. With team trainings, it allows you to become masters of what you do, and it reestablishes the purpose of what you're doing. If everyone is doing things better, then you're truly transforming your clients' lives. If you're setting someone up with mastery, then that helps with autonomy as well, because you can set ground rules for where they can operate independently and be successful. With training, there may be a temptation to lecture your team, but what the guys have found more effective is a guided discovery. You can ask questions and objections, and sometimes you'll find that your team has similar concerns. You can then adjust the system to accommodate for those concerns. This is all about making your team better at their jobs. You can bring in a facilitator, or you can also send team members out to training. Micah said that you do have to encourage your team to get training and to use their budget for this. If they're going to a conference or outside training, they recommend going through questions in advance and doing prep work to make that training a success. The guy's pro tip is to go with a specific question or problem to solve. The team member also needs to present to the entire team what they learned and action items they can implement. If you're wondering how to break the team training up and how often you should do them, Matt and Micah will do it all team training where they could be going over one specific element of a program. You want the entire team to be trained on things. You want to make sure that your entire team is trained on certain things, plus make sure that you're doing specific pod training. In Micah's office, once a month is an entire team training, then the other time is a pod training, and they rotate who is in charge of that training. Remember, team training is all about improving and resetting expectations, reminding you how and why you do things. Let's get into action items. Schedule team training and start this within the next 45 to 60 days. Don't wait until you feel like it's going to be a good time. You just need to put this on the calendar so it has a place to live. Plug your team members into training. This could be something high-end, an online class, or a book that you're all going to read. And you need to get this set up for success. So have an evaluation form after training as to what your team liked and how they could make the training better. On Wednesday, Matt was joined again by Lewis Diamond from Diamond Consultants, a financial advisor recruiting firm. Lewis helps advisors and business owners who are looking for counsel and clarity on the next phase in their career or when they're launching an independent business. Matt and Lewis wanted to talk about the misunderstandings of how much is getting lost to the grid and how big of a cut of the action is being taken from you. Lewis said there's a spectrum between advisors who know everything down to the penny to those who aren't sure what that number is, but he feels that business owners really need to understand what they're paying for. Not just because it's good business sense, but you have to relate the value you're receiving from your firmware platform to how much they're charging you. Matt said it's a red flag when an advisor says that they aren't paying anything, and Lewis said that when something is too good to be true, well, then it is. Someone is paying for it in some capacity, and if it isn't you, then it's the client. Matt recommends that you look at this at least once a year to figure out exactly what that number is, and this is one way that Lewis helps advisors. He said you can pull a report and see how much is deducted, but that the number is somewhat misleading and that it's a bit of a black box. Lewis's company will help advisors to compare and contrast what they have versus what else is out there. So if you're looking to make a move, you need to be able to quantify this. He said that typically RIAs do net more than advisors with a broker-dealer, but sometimes it's relatively close. And ultimately, you want to know what you're paying for and what you're getting in return. Lewis said that first you need to understand the cost, but then you need to unpack the value that actually is being exchanged. Lewis said it's rare now that an advisor joins a firm, grows their business, and then retires from there. He shared a concept of maximizing your career enterprise value, where if you're an employee, your enterprise value is the summation of your career earning. And one way to boost that is to make one well-timed move. He said that usually if people are comfortable and stay in one place, they're selling themselves short in some capacity. Matt and Lewis discussed whether there's a certain point as a gauge as to when advisors should really start looking to make a move. And Lewis said it's usually more about if you're in enough pain and if you've found something that's worth moving to. Matt switched gears to talk about the movement in the industry and wanted to get Lewis's opinion on advisors who feel that they're at the mercy of big changes. Lewis said that if you're an advisor who finds himself in a situation where you're suddenly out of control of your own destiny, then it's on you to play offense. You're doing yourself a disservice to let the world pass you by and not at least take control of the situation. Let's get into action items. Reach out to Lewis at ldiamond@diamond-consultants.com if you have a question or if you want to schedule some time with him. And whatever channel you're in, do the crit crude test that Lewis and Matt talked about on Wednesday. Look at how much has come out of the client's account versus how much you took home. On Thursday, Jamie was talking about how to handle a situation where you don't have the staff yet. That's a group of rock stars. She went over a couple of the top questions that she's recently received about finding employees and how to get your current team on board with your goals. First, how do you get personnel? Jamie will write ads that speak to someone's value and primarily will look for individuals who've worked in the healthcare industry, and she'll post on Indeed. She said one of the benefits to someone coming from healthcare is that they're already familiar with confidentiality. They're used to working long hours, and right now they're pretty burnt out after COVID. And they also tend to be compassionate. And Jamie doesn't tend to hire people with a ton of financial experience because she feels that she has to untrain them. She'll look for longevity and how long someone has held a job. Preferably that's 3 to 5 years. She said they're building team leaders, so they're looking for those who want to be with them for long term. Now, the other big question is, what about if you already have an existing team and you're struggling to get them on board with things? She said that problem number one is that they don't understand the goal because you haven't articulated it in a way that has a meaningful impact to them. So you need to have conversations with your team about your why, both at your annual meeting and monthly. You also want to make sure that you're celebrating successes with the team. And your team needs to understand their involvement in and their importance in your goals. And once they're passionate about your why, it can't stop there. You have to make sure that you're being consistent in talking about that why. Now, one of the arguments that she'll hear when teams fail is that there's a lack of resources, specifically with money, personnel, and technology access. For Schlansky & Associates employees, they get a technology allowance that's structured so that each team member is empowered to buy things that will help them get better at their jobs. For programs, Jamie will tell the team that if they want to implement or purchase a program, they need to problem solve and 5x that investment, either in revenue or time. She said it's easy to just start subscribing to a bunch of programs, so this helps to narrow that down. Regarding lack of personnel, Jamie said advisors tend to immediately think that more human capital is the initial solution. Now, she did say that if you're a solo practitioner, she highly recommends that you hire a virtual assistant. But if you're already staffed and you want to bring someone else on, you really need to look and see whether your team is actually at capacity and whether they're being inefficient. Go through your team members' time just to have them walk through their day, and you'll likely find some inefficiencies, but it helps to have somebody else on the outside looking in. Jamie will also sometimes hear from leads that they have conflicting priorities and that they need help prioritizing. Jamie likes to set deadlines around money and time, and then other things can be fluid. Make sure that your team can come to you and has the vocabulary necessary to address this with you when you're running into those issues. Another area where Jamie looks to see why team members can't achieve goals is related to their skill set. She takes the approach of whether that person has a natural aptitude to take on a new skill or whether tasks should be divided out amongst other people in the team. So look to see at where they're rock stars and where they don't succeed. Make sure you're getting the absolute best out of every individual. Jamie wrapped up by stating that there aren't any rockstar shops. So most of the time, you want to look for good people who share your values and who are highly motivated. Someone who actually wants to make a change in the world and change lives. Let's get into action items. Evaluate your team. If you're a solo practitioner, you need to consider hiring someone in a virtual or part-time capacity so that you can focus on financial planning. If you have a multi-advisor office, do a complete evaluation and make sure that you have the right people in the right seats. And what are your objectives? Are your team members committed to them because they understand the goals and how they play and role in that goal? That wraps up this week's recap. Thank you for joining me on today's Follow-Up Friday. Please share this or any of our episodes with another advisor or a team member who you think might benefit from listening. And until next time, happy planning.
Hold on before we go. Something that you need to know. This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice. Be a better husband, father, mother, and wife. The perfect RIA.